The Red Bull recession, the fall of Red Bull. I've seen a little bit of this sentiment rolling around social media that it was surprising for people. I talked about this a lot last year. If you're an avid TLP, you'll remember my sentiments. You remember my predictions. I remember my thoughts that Red Bull were going to have a tough time. And a whole lot of new and a late shift in focus to the 2026 regs. Red Bull's struggles should not be shocking anybody. Now, I know you were bold. You were bold this year, and you said that Red Bull were going to be a surprise team for you. They are not surprising positively. I know that for a fact.
I wasn't specific. I probably was.
Khaki Calf, your thoughts on Red Bull at this stage of the season?
Yeah, I think they also have issues that they need to get ironed out, just like McLaren do. I think Isaac has looked pretty good. All in all, I think he's looked pretty good. He's had a pretty good start to the year as far as how he's looked on track in that second seat next to Max. I think we just need to see Max getting across the finish line. I think that's the thing for me in my head. And I do the same thing with McLaren. Is what would the points look like if Max just got across, right? If he could just put those points on the board, where would Red Bull be sitting, right?
Mm-hmm. Or Hadjar in Australia, for instance. Yeah, it's another opportunity.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If they could have just notched those points, where would Red Bull really be? And I think when we do it like that, I think they're a lot closer. I just think there's so much negative around them right now because Max is talking so negatively about them. But you've got a new customer with your engine, a new team principal that I think you're still trying to figure out, right? I think he's still trying to figure things out. They're so far away from being a finalized version of this new Red Bull system. This new post-Christian Horner era is so far from being finalized and figured out. And they have some time, but I'm not necessarily worried about them. Max is always going to complain about things. Isaac has looked pretty strong, which I did predict. So I'm not overall worried about Red Bull. I think that there's just going to be a team like McLaren, in a way. They need to figure the F out what's going wrong and get it right. So that way they can compete and we can actually see what they're worth. Like when we look at team standings, I know that McLaren is better than 18 constructors' points, just like how I know Red Bull is better than 12 constructors' points. But that is what they have. We just need to see it.
Yeah. Look, the reality is Red Bull are struggling because there's just so much new. They're so out with the old and with the new. Literally, they have a new team principal in Lauren Mekes who replaced Christian Horner, a new arrowhead that's replaced Adrian Newey, whose name escapes me at the moment. Helmut Marko has retired. He's no longer with the organization. Dietrich Mateschitz, huge backer for that team, huge proponent. He's not with the team anymore. He passed away a couple years ago. New drivers, by the way. Isaac Hadjar on the senior team, Arvid Lindblad. Those are new faces and new places. The looming of the Max Verstappen exit clause, by the way, is certainly only going to add stress to the team to deliver where they can't. But they're a first-time power unit manufacturer. Ford partners and engineering turnover over the last few years, too, there's so much changing just behind the scenes. And these are new cars top to bottom, which has been a massive learning curve for everyone involved. And as far as the power unit, just to touch back on that again, for a first-time power unit constructor, it shouldn't be surprising that they've had some big reliability issues. Across both the Red Bull teams, there have been DNFs and incidents across both weekends. Max Verstappen's qualifying crash in Australia due to a technical issue. Isaac Hadjar's early race DNF in Australia due to a power unit issue. Arvid Lindblad's DNF in the Chinese sprint due to a power unit issue. And then Max Verstappen once again in China during the feature race, another power unit giving out. It's going to be a while. I've listed everything I've listed is something new, but also things I talked about towards the end of last season, expecting Red Bull to really be fighting at the front. Also, after sacrificing a ton of development time and energy into Max's 2025 title run, his shot anyway, couldn't quite complete it, of course. I'm sure you can smile about that. It set them back. The reality is they spent a lot of time and energy trying to win a driver's championship for Max and keeping him happy. And it fell, unfortunately, just a little bit short. But with how much new, it's going to take time. You got to see who's in the organization still that's going to excel and know how to develop, who isn't. From the top down, everybody at the factory. Red Bull have a strong backing. And they have a history of championship level success. So the expectations are high and they should be high. But don't be shocked if this season struggles even leak into the next season. It's honestly possible it gets somewhat worse right now before it's even going to get better. But yeah, they're off to a good start with what looks like easily the fourth fastest car on the grid. The constructors' points do not quite paint the picture. When they have been on the track, they look like they're about fourth. I'd say third to fourth. They're fighting with McLaren right now. They have a solid midfield team in V-Carb, and there are some things to hang their hats on. Right now, though, it's just the reliability issues.
Hey, look, at least you're not with Honda, because Honda has actually looked worse than Ford right now. So at least you made that jump.
I mean, they made the proper jump. Aston Martin, we could talk for 45 minutes about how insanely destructive that all has looked so far. But all that to say, Red Bull, it's a new era, and new eras take time to really become championship level, at any level of sport. Any sport. You change a head coach in football, you're probably not winning the Super Bowl that year, right? You get a new quarterback, it's probably not going to be a first-year Super Bowl, right? Or you get, some massive new sluggers and you lose all your best players, right? In baseball, you're probably not going to be fighting the Dodgers for a World Series loss, because the Dodgers are going to win the World Series every year. But all that to say, what do you think of Red Bull's struggles? Are they terminal TLPs? Is this going to be forcing Max to trigger his exit clause? Let us know in the comments. I want to know what everybody thinks, honestly. If you're a Red Bull fan, I want your honest opinions about where you see this team at right now.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, it's been a fun one. It's been a long podcast. We've had a lot of, unfortunately, we've had some highs and we've had some lows, right? The highs of Mercedes and Antonelli Wing, but the lows of, McLaren and Red Bull. Unfortunately, not everything can always be positive. But it's going to do it for this episode of the Lap Podcast. I want to thank you guys for watching or listening all the way to the end. If you haven't joined the rest of the TLPs yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're chasing 1,000 subs. It costs you absolutely nothing at all. Helps massively with the algorithm. Puts us in front of more F1 fans just like you. So we're going to be back for another episode next week ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix. A lot more questions have been answered, but we're still going to have a lot more questions left to ask. Until next time. That man right there is Khaki Kevin Walker. I am Tristan Ryans. Be safe, be well, and let's go racing.